Sixers lose their ninth straight, 6 games left. People, stick with us right here on Locked On 76ers.
You are Locked On 76ers, your daily Philadelphia 76ers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into Locked On 76ers. We're your host, Keith Pompey, 76ers beat writer. I'm Kayla Santiago, sideline reporter for the Delaware Blue Coats 76ers NBA G League affiliate. If you're watching us on YouTube, listening to wherever you listen to your podcast, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. In addition to check us out on our free daily newsletter on LockedOnDaily.com. So nothing new. The 76ers lose 105-91. The biggest thing was the 76ers had their 52nd different lineup in terms of starting lineup. That is a new NBA record. And Keith, that is just crazy when you put it into that perspective of just how bad things have been for Philadelphia this year.
Yeah, and the thing about it is it's been bad since the beginning, right? I mean, because when you look at it before Joel shut down, before PG shut down, you know, they had a lot of different starting lineups, during that time. But since they started tanking, it just seemed like every game was just a different lineup out there. But that's the problem. The one thing I will say is this game might have been the worst game that they played, or the worst performance that I've seen in a while. And the reason being is because there was nothing that you could take away from it. You know, I get it. I understand that Quentin Grimes had 26 points on 8 for 18 shooting, but he was like 1 for 6 on 3. He had 9 for 10. He was 9 for 10 from the foul line. But when you look at the overall performance of the guys out there, it looked like finally they played against a team that didn't play their star players. But the 76ers never had a chance at all. Never. And, and it was a game that was hard to watch. It was a game that was hard to stay focused on watching after a while, because you just knew that, they did go on a run on the third quarter, but at the same time, you just knew that this game was over from the beginning, and it was nothing that the 76ers could do. And they were going up against the New York Knicks role players for the most part.
They really were. You saw no Jalen Brunson last night, in addition to no Cat either. Landry Shamet, former Sixer, if people remember him, he had a season-high 20 points, 6 made threes for the New York Knicks as well. OJ Anunoby, he had a good game, for the New York Knicks too, 27 total points. It was his 7th consecutive game with 20 or more. So the Knicks kind of showed that they had some role players that could shut the Sixers down. Now, I get it. Some people might say, well, it was close at one point. The Sixers, they tried a little bit of a run, but this game was out of reach really from the opening minutes of this contest. And the role players of the Knicks kind of showing that, they're trying. I think the big thing for New York and what you're looking at too on their side of things is they're trying to figure out the guys that are going to play meaningful role minutes in the playoffs, because you already know kind of your 5, 6 in that rotation. We do know from playoffs that you really only go 8 deep, 9 maybe deep as well. So Landry Shamet, a guy is that you kind of talk about, that you look at trying to put himself in a position where he can be called up in games and be in spots where he can get some minutes as well. But yeah, it was just the role players playing the 76ers and just stomping on their heads, essentially. It was a really rough game all around. And we've talked about players, Keith, that we want to see do well and maybe analyze throughout the last 6 to 7 games of the season. And last night was a bad night for that, because nobody really shined performance-wise against a Knicks team that just completely had their number.
Yeah, and that's the thing. We're talking about it. Mitchell Robinson is just coming back. He had a double-double. It's just kind of like, oh yeah, he's back on the floor. Yeah, he's been out for over a year, or basically he hadn't played since, the playoff series with the 76ers. And he gets a double-double. And I get it, like the whole Landry Shamet thing. Landry Shamet is a guy who played for the Sixers. I remember, he was sent the Clippers and the Tobias Harris trade that brought Tobias Harris back. But he's a guy that was hard to get minutes until people got banged up. Yep. And he was out there looking like Ray Allen against the 76ers. You know what I mean?
No, you're so right, though. It's crazy. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. And like, we're talking about a dude who doesn't get any burn. And then OG, he has 27 points. OG does, So, we're saying this, and there, that New York is looking at things and trying to figure out, but it basically just pronounced the fact that how makeshift of a roster the 76ers are playing with right now. The one thing that you look at Kyle Lowry, he's a guy who could probably come in and, give them a little bit of a lift, something like that, or see what he can do. Like, this could be the tail end of his career. But, he only shot the ball once. He had 2 assists. He had 2 steals. But even down to Adem Bona, here's a guy who finished with 2 steals and 3 blocks. But really, he didn't really do that until the game was all but decided. It kind of like, he was getting abused in the pick and roll and all other things early on. This was a eye-opening performance against a Knicks team. And here's the thing. As much as we want to talk about the Knicks and getting ready for the playoffs, they've been a Knicks team that's been extremely vulnerable as of late. And I don't know. Yeah, the Sixers made that one run, but let's face it, this game was over early.
It was. And then one number I look at, too, really bad, really, really terrible from beyond the arc last night. 6 for 31, 19.4% from three-point land. I mean, the 76ers are turning to one of the laughing stocks in the NBA right now, because you look at some of these other teams that are tanking, you say, okay, where they started in the beginning of the season, maybe you could see them ending up here. I knew once Joel Embiid started, I can't play in the back-to-backs. He started not playing, played only 19 games this season. Okay, the 76ers won't win as many games without him. Paul George, not playing up to his potential and where the 76ers might have wanted him to play. Okay, they won't win that many games. But to have your 52nd consecutive, or not 52nd consecutive, but 57 different starting lineup, a new NBA record, in addition to how bad this season ended up, they're a joke at this point of the year. It's so tough to watch and it's so tough to look at. It makes you worry about the future of this team, is what we've talked about before, and what offseason moves they're going to make. But once again, this is the interview for these guys. And to me, nobody passed the interview last night if you're the 76ers front office, because the Knicks, once again, they had their number and guys just could not perform and get into any type of groove.
Yeah, but honestly, is it set up for them to pass it? I mean, if we're going to be honest with you, I mean,
good point.
We're talking about like Landry Shamet, but he is an NBA guy, right? A guy who played in the league for a while. Mm-hmm. We're talking about, okay, well, who are you going to bring in there? Who's the 76ers equivalent of Landry Shamet? Is it Jared Butler? You know what I'm saying? So right now, these guys aren't really being put in a situation to where they are going to do anything. I mean, the biggest takeaway, and the only thing that you can get is that is a tanking masterclass that they're displaying right now. I mean, they're throwing out these guys, and you know what? They play hard. They play with a lot of grit. But when they go up against bona fide Division I guys, the talent level is just not there. They're just missing. We're talking about, you had Philip Wheeler. He's a guy on the 10-day. He went 0 for 4, 0 for 2 on threes, right? You look at Ricky Council. He had an okay game, but he was 6 for 13, 1 for 4 on threes. Quentin Grimes. He had 26 points, but he was 1 for 6 on threes. Lonnie Walker, he had 11 points, 5 for 12. He was 1 for 6 on threes. He had 7 rebounds, 4 assists. So, it's just one of those things where you look at it and you say to yourself, Mikal Bridges didn't play very well, nor did um a Chua,
Josh Hart,
right?
yeah,
You know
Josh
what I
Hart,
mean?
yep.
He was 1 for 11. I mean,
Mhm.
so it's just one of those things where you just look at it, and the one thing that you have to say, and yeah, they you could say they're a laughing stock, but to me, it's more or less the product that they put out there. They know is built to lose, and this was a game where they went up against a team who kind of like what OKC did. They didn't like play the two-way guys. They played rotation guys, and that just let you know the just disparity in talent. You know what I'm saying? It
Mhm.
was like it wasn't that they didn't go up against the Knicks G League team. They went up against the Knicks regular players. They just didn't go up against their superstars, their two stars, and they were embarrassed.
And it could have been much worse if it was those two stars coming in. So I'm a little nervous to see what, the deficit will be against teams like the Bucks and Timberwolves. We'll wait and see. But listen, they are doing something right. All this year, we've said about the Philadelphia 76ers, they should be doing this. Why aren't they doing this? They lead you to look at these expectations of what the team could be, and they haven't met them. Well, the one expectation they're meeting, knock on wood right now, is losing. Is tanking. That's what they're supposed to be doing, and they're doing it. So they're doing it very, very well as well. We'll continue to talk about the Tank Masters coming up in the next segment here. 76ers have their 9th straight loss, 9 consecutive games where they have not been able to come out on top. And baseball season is in full swing, and there's no better way to get in on the action than with PrizePicks, the best place for daily fantasy sports. With PrizePicks, you pick more or less on at least 2 player projections, and if you're right, you can win up to 1,000 times your cash. Whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, or first inning runs, PrizePicks will be keeping every game exciting. Building my lineup this week, I'm picking Aaron Judge for more than 1 home run and Shohei Ohtani for more than 1 stolen base. It is that easy. I mean, how can I not? In addition, JT Realmuto throwing out somebody that's trying to steal as well over at second or at third. How could you not at this point? Those are most likely guaranteed. Fast and simple. Setting up a lineup, less than 60 seconds. And when you win, you pay out. And it's quick, it's safe, and it's secure. Exclusive promos. I always take advantage of Taco Tuesday, where PrizePicks offers discounts on select player projections for even more value. And that's exactly what you want to be able to do when you're looking to place these bets, have daily fantasy sports, and everything in between. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONNBA to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNBA for $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, make sure you run your game. So the 9th straight loss for the Philadelphia 76ers. They are 4-26 in their last 30 games. I mean, if I'm Nick Nurse, I might just be thanking everything that there's only 6 games left on the year, because at this point, what can Nick Nurse say to these guys? Is there any type of confidence that Nick Nurse needs to push on these guys saying, hey, we got 6 games left, go out there and show what you can do? At this rate, if I'm Nick Nurse, I'm sitting back and count my lucky stars that there's only 6 games left to go. How do you coach in these situations, Keith? Because it must be tough. Are you doing much coaching? Are you just saying, hey, go out there and play your game and show us what you got? Because at this rate, it's got to be. Now, granted, he makes money. I'm not feeling bad for a guy making money and, having a 4-26 in the last 30 games. But at the same rate, I mean, what can you even say to these guys that are G League players on 10-day contracts that are going out there and a guaranteed losing throughout the rest of the season?
I mean, the best thing is what he'll say to him is, now, first of all, there isn't a lot. I mean, there is some coaching. I mean, because what he's doing is kind of like he knows that the team is going to lose, but it's kind of like a puzzle, and it's kind of like a real tough puzzle to solve. But you have these guys, and you're going to go out there and you want to see what they can do to solve it. They all know it's like mission impossible. But the big thing is like, hey, you guys are playing for your future. And that's what this is. Like, for a guy like Ricky Council, a guy who, his contract is always non-guaranteed for the next year, it's like he's basically out there auditioning for his job right now. You know, Lonnie Walker, he's a guy that's trying to, he has, there's a team option on his deal for next year. He's trying to see if he can fit in. You know, the same thing for like Alex Reese, Bagley, Marcus Bagley, Philip Wheeler. These are all guys who are trying to like go out there and say, you know what, maybe I could be a two-way guy next year. Maybe, I can maybe do what Ricky Council did. So that's what it's all about. Like right now, what they're doing is they're giving all these guys minutes that they would not receive anywhere else. And so what the Sixers are telling them, what Nick Nurse is saying, like, look, take advantage of this opportunity. If it doesn't work out with us, it could work out for another team. We're providing you with this opportunity. But guess what? We want to try to see if we could keep it close and then maybe work on some in-game situations. And if that works out, then maybe we can still win. That's what we want to do. But they know like everything is stacked against them, that it's probably not going to happen. But for the most part, it's all about player development right now and trying to, get these guys to showcase and prove to the Sixers and other teams around the league that they are actual NBA players.
And for the Sixers, it's essentially an extended G League season too, because when you look at it, the G League, that developmental league, you're looking at guys, you're trying to follow your dream of playing in the NBA and being able to get that contract or get a two-way. And that's what the Sixers are right now, just an extended period of time from that standpoint. So still interviews happening, still a lot being able to happen for these other guys that are looking to see where they might end up next year, whether that's on a two-way, whether they're able to get a standard deal, whether it's on another team. I will say the one guy that I am confident in, though, Keith, that I think that even if the Sixers don't pick him up, that will get paid and will get a good opportunity is Quentin Grimes. And I know, he's had some really big spurts and he's had some really good opportunities. And you heard from prior that the Mavs let him go because they didn't want to have to pay him. So I think teams might understand that they're going to have to pay him. And maybe certain teams don't want to give him as much as maybe they feel that he's valued. But at the same time, he is one player that no matter where he ends up, I would like to see the 76ers keep him. But I think you can guarantee him on a team where he can make somewhat of an impact, whether that's coming off the bench or as a role player next season.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and that's what it is. I mean, right now, and that's another thing where his development is like, show us some other things that you can do just because, we know what you can do with the ball in your hands. We know you can score, but can you run an offense? Some of the things we talked about before. And for him, this is a great opportunity. Although, you have to, if he gets 30-something points, you look at that as, okay, well, that's like 25 against or 23 against regular NBA competition, which is good for him, but at the same time, you can't like say, okay, well, he played a G League dude and he scored at him against Will, that he's going to do that against Anthony Edwards. You know what I mean? So, but at the same time, he's playing well. He's showing what he can do. Another guy, Justin Edwards. Justin Edwards, this is a quality minutes for him because, you look at Justin Edwards, we all know about him. We know what he can do. He's a kid from Philly, this and that. But this is a opportunity for him to also show the coaches what he can do, as more of a primary guy. Like, when he's out there, he's the second or third option, right? Typically, he's not an option, if he's playing with Joel and playing with Paul George and all these other guys. So, he's someone else that's really benefiting from this right now.
Yeah, Justin Edwards is always a really good story. And if people don't know, or, if you do too, of course, a really, really good high school player at MOTEP, a fantastic player. He got his jersey retired, everything in between. Struggled a little bit at Kentucky. The best numbers that he had were the minutes per game that he played goes undrafted, has a really great season in the G League as that two-way player, of course, gets on the standard deal with the Philadelphia 76ers. And now he's a really young player that is showing you that, hey, you don't always need to have a fantastic college year and season to be able to produce in the NBA or even at the G League level. He is showing that his talent is still there. He's a young player that can develop, and I think that he can fit in really good with the 76ers. So he's another player that I'm eyeing on for the rest of the season to see what he will do. But the 76ers are 2 games above, and we put that in quotes because, you know, they're technically worse in the regular season in the NBA standings, but in the tanking standings, they are 2 games above the Nets, and they are 1.5 game out against the Pelicans for that 4th spot. So we'll continue to break that down and so much more here on Locked On 76ers. And every check your bank account and ever wonder, where did all my money go? And I know I do that all the time, especially when bills are due, when I'm eating out a little bit too much, when I'm using apps to get food a little bit too much more than I should, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment. It is really easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in, your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just budgeting app, it's a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, investments, and spending in one place, so you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Surprising insights. When I started using Monarch Money, I realized just how much I was spending on food delivery. Now I budget smarter and save a lot more, all in one convenience. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track spending, and even plan long-term goals. Easy collaborations. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. Take control of your finances with Monarch Money. Use code LOCKEDONNBA at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com. Use code LOCKEDONNBA. That's LOCKEDON NBA for half off your first year. Make sure you go check out Monarch Money today. Oh, and here come these standings again. So the 76ers 2 games above the Nets. The Nets coming up. They've had a little bit of a break. They come up on Thursday, April 3rd, and they have the Timberwolves. Them winning that game against the Mavericks, by the way, was just huge. Huge for the 76ers in terms of those reverse standings. Then they have the Raptors. Then that Pelicans game we'll really be looking at as well. And the Pelicans have the Clippers, which definitely is not going to go the Pelicans' way, but you never know what can happen in the NBA. So I'm going to allude to kind of what we talked about yesterday, and the biggest conversation is the takeaways from the 76ers, and what can you take away from a terrible performance of a game? And you said it best, Keith, that they can tank, that they're doing the right thing for once this season and losing, and they're getting some help by the Brooklyn Nets as well that just need to keep on winning on their end.
Yeah, I mean, the big thing is that right now, you know, it looks like, and we talked about this yesterday, you know, I feel as though that the 76ers are basically secure at the 5th spot, in my opinion. I feel like, you know, a lot has to go wrong for the 76ers not to get that position. You know, right now, you look at it, what they have, the 9th, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9th. Yeah, they have the 9th easiest remaining schedule. Well, when you look at Brooklyn, 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, they have the 13th easiest schedule. I mean, they have, 2 games against Minnesota, 1 against the Knicks. They have the Pelicans, they have Toronto, and they have the Hawks. That's their other games. So they played the Timberwolves, twice. So I look at it, whereas I feel like, you talk about a laughing stock when we talk about the Sixers. I look at it more as this is a team that's built to lose, destined to lose. And, I think there's only going to be one game that I feel like personally that, or maybe 2, that they have a chance of winning. And those 2 are Washington and maybe the Chicago Bulls game at the end, assuming the Bulls shut everybody down, right? But aside from that, I just feel like the fact that the 76ers, lost a couple nights ago, and the fact that Brooklyn won, it just put them in position to secure that spot in regards to the 5th worst record. Now, for them, the good thing for the Sixers is they're now 1.5 games away from the fourth best record. Worst record. So
Yeah.
for them, that's like something to, feel good about, to see what they could do.
And you allude to the Bulls, too, in that last game. I'm curious what Chicago will do when it comes to that point. Now, granted, there's still some games in between that. And I mentioned that because they are 3 games behind the Magic. Now, I don't think they'll catch the Magic, but they are only a game behind the Miami Heat for the 9th spot. So you have a little bit of advantage in terms of play-in if you're the 9th spot over the 10th spot. Not that it's too much, but at the same time, if it comes down to that Sixers game, that's almost a guaranteed win if you play your guys, and you can maybe bump up against the Miami Heat if they're looking to be in that play-in. But the 76ers, they're a bad team to watch, but for once this season, they're doing the right thing. Both things are true at this point. They're tanking, they're losing, they're doing what they need to do. And before I throw things off, and we can go more into this in our episodes throughout the week, Keith, but you put out a really good tweet about Tyrese Maxey. He worked out, is expected to work out today as well. And your big question was, do people want to see him in the final 6 games of the year? 88% saying no, 5.5% saying yes, and 6.5% saying cool with whatever. Head over to Keith's Twitter if you want to go vote on that. But if the 76ers want to do this right, and they want to do one thing right this season, it is to not bring Tyrese Maxey back and to keep losing.
Yeah, maybe you can bring him back against Minnesota. Maybe you can bring him back against Milwaukee. Maybe. But nah, I wouldn't do it. And, but it's one of those things where the 76ers aren't going to come out. If they plan on shutting them down, they're not going to come out and say, yeah, we're going to shut Tyrese down, right? They're not going to admit that. They're just not. To me, there was only 3 games that Tyrese could come back. That was this one, the one last night against the Knicks. That's Thursday against Milwaukee, and then Saturday against Minnesota. Outside of that, it's going to be detrimental to their tank, in my opinion. You know what I mean? Now, who knows? Maybe let's say if they go up 2.5 games over Brooklyn, and that Brooklyn is not going to come back, then maybe you may say, okay, let's just give it a chance. Let's just see what's going to happen. But aside from that, nah, you can't play them. And the one thing, when we talk about Chicago, I think that the race that the teams that you gotta really be careful about are going to be Atlanta and Miami. Right. And the reason why is so right now, when we look at it, Chicago has already secured its spot in the play-in tournament. Right. So the thing is, if Chicago doesn't make any ground up on anybody, they're just going to, no matter what they do, they're going to stay at that spot. Right. Mm-hmm. But when you look at Atlanta and Miami, these 2 teams, they're right now. And what happened is Atlanta has 2 games on Miami, but Miami has a 5-game winning streak. Right now, what they're doing is they're battling for that 8th position, and possibly, they could mess around and slip around and get the 6th or 7th position too. And the reason why that's so vital is because in the play-in tournament, if you're number 7 or number 8, it's a 2-loss tournament, meaning you can lose your first game and then you can battle for the 8th spot, right? You have to win it. So right now, when we look at Atlanta and Miami and Orlando, these 3 teams are battling for those 2 spots, just to be safe. So I think when those 2 teams are salivating to play against the 76ers, because they're looking at this as a guaranteed win, a must-win game for both of them. Because if they lose to the Sixers, then you might as well say whoever the loser is most likely going to be in that 9th spot, right? And they don't want that. They don't want that at all.
And that 9-10 spot is so hard to be in, because when you look at those standings, if you have one bad game, If one guy's a little injured, if one guy's a little hurt, you're done. That's it. Your playoff hopes are over. But if you're in 7-8, you have another chance to kind of redeem, look back at what went wrong, being able to bring some guys back at a little bit fuller strength, and then go into the playoffs. Now, granted, I don't really think any of these teams are going to make a super big push into the NBA playoffs, but it's better than being on the outside for them. So definitely games that they're going to say, must win, need to go out there. Thank goodness the 76ers are on my schedule is what those two organizations are saying right now. That's the team that the 76ers have been. But the takeaway is that they're losing experts maybe at this point. They are figuring out the tank. They are doing the thing for now. There's still 6 games left, so we can't get too excited about where the 76ers are because it all could blow up. You never know what could happen. But I'm in agreement with you, Keith. I do think that they are going to falter out these next games. The only winnable game to me as well is that Wizards game coming up later in terms of the 6 games left to go. So the 76ers, they fall to the New York Knicks 105-91, and they are now 2 games ahead in the reverse standings of the Brooklyn Nets. Thank you guys all so much for tuning in to Locked On 76ers. For Keith Pompey, I'm Kayla Santiago saying so long, and we'll see you guys next time.